Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the work and ideas of someone who's been called the Prince of State and also a global monetary innovator.
Sounds intriguing already.
It is. We're talking about Arbiter Dado Mohammed Zahari bin Awang, but he's more often known as just DZA.
Okay, DZA.
Right. You sent over some fascinating documents about DZA and his plans, and to be honest, they cover everything. I mean, global finance, numismatic assets, even something called blue sky thinking. I wasn't sure what to expect.
Yeah, when I first heard about him, too, I had the same thought. Like, is this going to be super boring or mind-blowing?
Seriously. But I have to say, the more I dug into it, the more fascinated I got.
Yeah, DZA's ideas are definitely a little out there.
They are.
But what I found really interesting is it's not like he just came up with this stuff out of thin air.
Right.
He's pulling from centuries of history, religious philosophy, and also his own background.
Exactly. And that background is pretty wild. He started as a high-ranking officer in the Royal Malaysian Police's special branch. So we're talking intelligence and security. But then he shifted gears and went into the world of finance.
Huh. A pretty big change.
Huge. And not just any finance. He specialized in something called numismatic asset recovery and redemption.
Numismatic asset? What is that?
Basically, it means dealing with rare coins, historical artifacts, all those kinds of valuable collectibles.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so from catching bad guys to, like, treasure hunting.
In a way.
Yeah.
And then, on top of all that, he's now also earned the title of the Prince of State, bestowed by the President of the nation of Hawaii.
Wow. The Prince of State. Talk about a career path, right?
Yeah.
So all of this has kind of led him to this big vision.
It has this incredibly ambitious vision he calls the Iron Corridor economy.
And just to clarify, the Prince of State, he isn't just coming up with theories here. I mean, he's actually putting these ideas into action.
He is.
He's already working with companies all over the world. It seems like he really aims high.
Oh, definitely a global vision. So this Iron Corridor economy, it involves restructuring the global economic map. He's talking about 209 nations and over 3,000 state sovereignties.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of the core ideas behind all of this is blue sky thinking.
Blue sky thinking. Okay, I've heard that phrase before, but what does it actually mean?
Right. Well, in one of the documents you sent, there's this quote, blue sky thinking, which emphasizes seeing sound and hearing color hearing through sight and sight through hearing. I have to admit, when I first read that, I was like, okay, what does that even mean?
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
It is.
But I guess if you think about DZA's whole approach, it seems like what he means by blue sky thinking is kind of breaking free from those traditional economic models, seeing things from a completely different perspective, trying to find new solutions to these big, complicated problems.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
So how does this blue sky thinking actually apply to his critique of the current global financial system? Because he doesn't hold back there.
No, he doesn't. DZA is very clear. He believes the current system, which relies so much on interest, or what he calls riba, is flawed. It's led to instability, conflict, and a lot of economic hardship.
Especially for developing countries.
Especially. And, you know, it's interesting how he connects these historical, philosophical, and religious ideas to his whole economic vision. And then there's that whole divine protocol concept.
Yeah. It's like he's saying there's this historical pattern. Like, you've got monarchies that ruled for about 250 years, then they collapse because of all the corruption, then democracies come in.
But then those democracies, they end up adopting that same interest-based system.
And that leads to all the problems we see today. So he believes we're at a turning point where we need a new system.
So what does this new system actually look like?
Well, one of the key elements seems to be something he calls reserve-ben.
Reserve-ben.
Yeah, okay. What's that all about? So reserve-ben is basically his platform for making all this happen, putting this financial vision into practice. And it all ties back to those numismatic assets, the rare coins and artifacts we talked about.
Right, okay.
He plans to deposit a huge portion of these assets, which he claims are worth trillions of US dollars, into the central bank of the nation of Hawaii.
Trillions. Hold on, trillions.
That's what he says.
That's an insane amount of money.
It's almost impossible to imagine.
It is. So is this like the foundation for everything else he wants to do?
It seems like it. This massive deposit would be the backing for his new system.
Wow. Okay, so then what? What else is he planning?
So on top of that, he wants to establish his own group of banks. Get this. DZA Commercial Bank, Inc., DZA Investment Bank, Inc., DZA Quantum Digital Bank, Inc., and DZA International Offshore Bank, Inc.
Wow. It's like he's building his own financial universe.
It really is. And within that universe, he plans to issue new currencies, Ariel for Asian nations, and Aloha Kala for Western countries.
So he's not just tweaking the existing system, he's going for a complete overhaul.
Exactly. And at the heart of this new system, there's something else. Zero interest bonds.
Zero interest bonds, so no more REBA.
Right. He believes these bonds could be huge, especially for developing nations struggling with all that debt. It would give them access to capital, but without the burden of interest payments.
So potentially they could break free from those debt cycles.
That's the idea. And that's where this concept of monetary settlement comes in. It's about addressing those financial imbalances and resolving debt issues on a global scale.
So he's aiming for one of the biggest problems in the world right now, those non-performing loans.
Exactly. He thinks his approach with those zero-interest bonds and this monetary settlement could actually provide a solution where the traditional institutions have kind of failed.
It's a bold idea. But how does he think all this will actually work in practice? How would these banks operate? How would these new currencies gain acceptance?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. His plans involve a bunch of different mechanisms, like something called the trade program.
Trade program? Okay, what's that?
It's designed to generate returns. And then there's the private investment program, which is supposed to attract and manage investments from the private sector.
So he's not just relying on his own assets. He's trying to build a system that can create its own wealth and bring in outside investment.
It seems that way. And another key part of this is something called credit enhancement.
Credit enhancement.
Yeah, from what I can gather, time deposits, so funds deposited for a specific time period, are somehow used to boost the value of investments.
Okay, hold on. So we've got these time deposits for credit enhancement to help investments grow. Then you've got the trade program and the private investment program generating returns. This is complex.
It is. But what about the people? How does this all connect back to actually helping people, especially those who are really struggling? That's where the Living Smile program comes in.
Right. Living Smile program. That was something else I was curious about.
So this is DZA's big social responsibility initiative. The goal is to make sure everyone has a chance to thrive. It focuses on public health, education, and just overall community well-being.
It sounds amazing, but how does he actually make that happen?
Well, the documents mention local directors who would manage these programs on the ground. There's talk about investment returns from the trade program funding these initiatives, and even specific funds set aside for healthcare and education. It's all part of his vision for what he calls Earth's economy.
Earth's economy, huh? It's fascinating how he ties these huge ideas to specific programs like that Living Smile program. He's not just talking about economics in some abstract way. He's actually talking about changing the world, making people's lives better.
He really is. And get this, he's not stopping there. He even wants to replace the United Nations.
Whoa, hold on. Replace the UN
with something called the Global United Team Organization, or GUTO.
GU2. So he really is thinking on a global scale.
Absolutely. It seems like he wants to create a better, more effective system of global governance, one that can handle all the challenges of the 21st century and beyond.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. DZA, the Prince of State, his background, this whole vision for the Iron Corridor economy, new banks, new currencies, zero interest bonds, blue sky thinking, Earth's economy, and the divine protocol. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I think we've laid out the basics of DZA's worldview. Now the big question is, can he actually pull this off?
That's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive. We're going to take a closer look at all the challenges he's facing and try to figure out just how feasible his plans really are.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. So we've laid out Arbiter Dato Mohammed Zahari Benawang's DZA's vision. It's ambitious and a new global economic order.
It is.
But you have to admit, a plan this big, this radical, it's bound to raise some eyebrows, some questions.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We're talking about changing the entire global financial system, a system that's been around for centuries. There are going to be some major hurdles to overcome.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest is skepticism. The world of finance, it's built on institutions and practices that have been around forever. Even if people see problems, they're comfortable with how things work, it's hard to convince them to embrace something totally new, especially something as radical as what DZA is proposing.
Especially when that something new involves, well, these numismatic assets that most people probably don't even really understand.
Yeah. Rare coins, historical artifacts, it's not your typical investment strategy.
Not at all. There's a lot of trust involved here. He's asking people to believe in his vision, his expertise, and the value of these assets.
Exactly. He's going to need to be really transparent, provide solid evidence to back up his claims.
And even then, there's going to be resistance. I mean, from those who benefit from the current system. Powerful nations, financial institutions, even individuals. They have a vested interest in keeping things the way they are. Change is scary, even if it might be for the better.
Right. DZ is basically challenging the established order, the powers that be. He's going up against some really powerful forces.
Forces that could see his plans as a threat to their own interests.
Exactly. And then on top of all that, just the sheer complexity of what he's trying to do. New currencies, new banks, restructuring global trade. It's a monumental undertaking.
It's not just the mechanics either. I mean, his vision touches on so much. Social, political, even religious dimensions. It's a whole different way of thinking about how we organize ourselves as a global society.
And that brings us back to that whole divine protocol concept. DZA sees this as part of a larger spiritual narrative, a divine plan. I can see how that could be appealing to some people.
It definitely adds another layer.
But it also makes things more complicated.
So how does this all play out in the real world? What are some of the actual challenges DZA might face? Let's start with those numismatic assets. How does he plan to use them to back up his financial system?
That's the big question. Those documents mentioned credit enhancement, using time deposits of these assets to increase the value of investments.
And so it's not like he's just paying people with these rare coins and artifacts.
No, it's more complicated than that. He's using their inherent value, their historical significance, to kind of guarantee the value of the new financial tools he's creating. You know what's really fascinating about Arbiter Dado Mohammed Zahari bin Awang's vision? It's not just about changing the financial systems themselves. He's talking about a whole values shift, moving away from the system driven by everyone just looking out for themselves toward one that prioritizes cooperation, shared prosperity, and this idea he calls living smile.
Yeah, that living smile thing really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's saying, let's build a system that actually makes people happy.
Yeah.
A world where everyone has a reason to smile. It's such a great concept. And it fits so well with this whole idea of blue sky thinking. Imagining a better future and then taking steps to make it real.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective. It ties economic policy directly to how people are doing. He's not just talking about money and numbers. He's talking about a world where people can actually thrive, where they have good health care, quality education, and the chance to chase their passion.
Right, so we're creating a world where people have what they need to live fulfilling lives.
Yeah.
Give back to their communities and really reach their full potential.
Exactly, and this whole living smile idea, it's really tied to Arbiter Dado Mohammed Zahari bin Awang's own spiritual beliefs. He thinks that if we can align our economic systems with a higher purpose, we can create a more harmonious and fulfilling world for everyone.
It's definitely a different way of looking at economics than just seeing it as a purely material thing. He's bringing in this spiritual side, saying that true prosperity is about more than just money. It includes purpose, connection, and well-being.
It really makes you think about the role of economics in making a better world. A world where people are valued for who they are, not just for how much they produce.
It's a really thought-provoking idea. And even if you don't agree with his specific beliefs, it's hard to argue with the idea that a more compassionate world would be a happier one. Imagine if everyone could experience that living smile life. The positive effects could be huge.
Absolutely, and that's what makes Arbiter Dado Mohammed Zahari bin Awang so compelling. He's not just a financier, he's a visionary, a reformer, someone who's challenging conventional wisdom, and offering a really bold new vision for the 21st century.
He's not afraid to think big, to challenge the status quo, and to offer solutions that might seem pretty radical at first. But when you look at the world today, with all the inequality, environmental problems, conflicts, maybe we do need some radical solutions. Maybe we need someone like DZA to shake things up, to make us rethink our assumptions and consider a totally different way of doing things.
Maybe it's time to really embrace this blue sky thinking and consider that a better world really is possible. A world where the economy works for everyone, not just a few. A world where living smile is more than just an idea, but a reality for people everywhere.
So what's next for Arbiter Dado Mohammed Zahari bin Awang and his Iron Corridor economy? Where does all this lead?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? He's laid out this ambitious plan, but it's not going to be easy. He'll have to deal with the existing power structures, build trust and cooperation globally, and convince people that a different way is possible.
And he's going to have to keep building awareness and support for his ideas to get people excited about this vision of a more just and equitable world.
But one thing's for sure. Arbiter Deo Mohammed Zahari bin Awang doesn't shy away from a challenge. He's really committed to his mission. And he's going after it with a lot of energy and determination.
And he's got those numismatic assets, which he believes are incredibly valuable if he can use them effectively. He could have the resources to make a real, lasting impact.
Yeah, this is a story that's just beginning, and it has the power to completely rewrite the rules of the global economy. This is something that could change the world, and we'll be here to track every development as it happens.
So everyone listening, stay tuned. This deep dive into the world of Arbiter Deo Mohammed Zahari bin Awang and his vision for a new global economy isn't over yet. We encourage you to learn more. Explore his ideas for yourself and imagine what a world built on blue sky thinking and living smile could be. The future's out there, and maybe together we can create a world where everyone has a reason to smile.